What's up, everybody? Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic.
I'm Jammin John.
And believe it or not, we still have some album reviews for you. And this will be the last week of reviews before we get down to year-end lists. But there were still like a couple of, I guess you could say stragglers, because like releasing albums in December just seems like kind of a bad idea. But, you know, bands still do it anyway. And there were still a couple that we wanted to go over, and this was definitely one of them. So we are going to go over the latest offering from Panzerchrist, Maleficium, Part 1. This comes out on the 6th of December on Emancipation Productions. This band formed in 1993 in Denmark. This is their 9th album overall. I've been into these guys kind of like off and on over the years. We actually went over their last album, Last of a Kind. Actually, that was last year, and I can't remember if it was early last year or late last year. I know it was cold out when that album came out.
I don't remember what happened yesterday, to be honest, so I have no idea.
And for those that don't know, this is just like some flat out, just gnarly blackened death metal. I would say that's kind of been their style, you know, like throughout their career. I've always thought this band was very comparable to God Dethroned, and once again, they were back, and I saw a lot of people bring up this album in the comments as to whether or not we were going to review it, and, well, here we are, and, well, thank you for bringing this one up, because otherwise I probably would have forgot about it.
Yeah, no kidding. I probably wouldn't have gone for it, actually. To be honest, I haven't listened to a whole lot of Panzerchrist, with the exclusion of the album we reviewed last year, and I think during that time, I don't think I was quite ready for it yet. You know, the black metal journey, blah, blah, blah. I'm not rehashing all that crap. But, like, yeah, I don't know if I wasn't ready for it or what, but I definitely wanted to give this another shot because, you know, obviously my tastes have changed now over the years, and I thought I was ready for it, and to be honest with you, I was ready for it.
Yeah, my expectations for this one, I mean, they were kind of based on the last one. The last one I thought was good. It didn't necessarily, like, blow me away, but I thought it was well executed, like, you know, solid atmosphere, good riffs, really gnarly vocals, and this, I kind of expected more of the same, but honestly, I will say that this is kind of an improvement over the last one, and it does some things that I really wasn't expecting. Atmosphere has always been a part of this band's sound, and, you know, they usually implement it really well. This one, I think, in terms of atmosphere being injected in their music, they do a fantastic job of making this album sound particularly unsettling and unnerving, especially in the first two tracks, Blood Leeches and Weak as the Flesh. The intro to Blood Leeches is dark. Like, you hear a violin fluttering, and then it's just waves of noise and ambience. It sounds like, you know, if Silent Hill had a orchestra that played in town, this would be the sound of them tuning up in the orchestra pit, which that goes right into blast beats, atonal riffs, dissonance. It's cold, it's ugly, and then Sonia's vocals come in, and she just sounds like this shrieking demon, and we're kind of off to the races here.
Yeah, a very solid opener. Definitely sets the pace for this record. For a majority of this album, I think excluding one song, a majority of this album is just straight balls to the wall. The guy never lets up on his double kick. He has not skipped leg day whatsoever. It's really kind of brutal in its presentation throughout this entire record, especially when you get into a lot of the riffing. And I do like all the atmospheric choices in here, especially in these couple first songs. I think Blood Leeches, while that is a good example of what's to come musically, I think that's one of the stronger tracks with all the atmosphere. Like, that is so heavily reliant on these creepy industrial noises or like whispers and screams. It kind of has more of an avant-garde feel to it, much like the next track, Weak as the Flesh, which is definitely more riffy, but it's still very atonal, and again, still reliant on like noises and like very creepy things happening in the end of that song. But the grossest of harmonies, that really is a standout moment for me. It just sounds just horrifying.
The riff work on here, well, first off, this band does a really solid job of balancing out both black metal and death metal. The riff changes on here, often like switching styles, like Weak as the Flesh is a good example. Comes thundering in with this like death metal kind of groove, almost kind of a swing to it, but it's got a double bass to it.
Got a little bit of thrash in it too.
And then when it comes down to the chorus, it switches up to those more like cold, icy tremolos. And, you know, it kind of like harkens a little bit more of that black metal atmosphere. And there's a lot of those changes on here. Sister Death in particular kicks down the door like a lot of Marduk songs that I have heard in the past, and I absolutely love, because when I think of fast, aggressive black metal, Marduk's kind of like top of the list. It sounds absolutely ravenous. It's just vicious and evil sounding, lots of dissonance, a lot of like second wave nods there, of course. And then it takes this interesting transition into like flat out machine gun death metal guitars. It just gets flat out brutal. Honestly, one of the heaviest tracks on this album, which is definitely saying something, because I think every track in here is pretty damn heavy.
I'm definitely going to contend that, to be honest with you. While I do think that Sister Death is a very heavy track, Confessions is also a very heavy track. Probably more akin to Morbid Angel, and the beginning of that song, too. I want to talk about the beginning of that song. I did not see that coming. Blood-curdling screams. I figured out what's happening is they're trying to get a witch to confess to being a witch. And they're pretty much just saying, confess, and like just screaming. Like, if you were to play this in the dark, I think that'd be it.
I mean, she'd probably be able to confess more if you weren't burning her. Like, all she can manage to get out is a scream. There's no words there. Hell, she'll probably lie to you anyway. It's like, yeah, no, your mom's a witch.
But another thing that comes into this song that isn't necessarily introduced at the record until this point would be melody. There are a ton of both awesome lead melodies going on and a bunch of really cool dissonant tremolo harmonies that act more as a melody. In fact, the tremolo harmonies stick around long enough, I think, for them to be a hook.
Now that's in terms of like traditional melodies. This band, at least, you know, kind of early on in this album, does not stick to traditional melodies very much. In fact, a lot of the guitar work is very atonal. Like, you have counter melodies and like these layers of guitars that they feel like they're playing off of one another, but they're playing like different atonal melodies, creating this very just unsettling, unnerving sound. And then there's also synths on here, like, you know, samples and such. Mist on the Moat, I know there's a sample because I heard Vincent Price talking to me, and I'm generally warmed over anytime he does because I love his movies. But the use of synths on here, I think, is really cool because there's a lot of variety to them, much like there's a lot of variety in terms of like the pacing of this album, in terms of like hearing different styles come up. You have stuff that kind of complements the more like almost avant-garde stuff. It sounds weird and unsettling, like a broken carousel calliope sort of sound, like Weak as the Flesh. There is a just bonkers bridge on there where I don't even know what that combination of notes is. It sounds just unnerving, like Carnival of Souls unnerving. Like someone just put you on a really run-down carousel after feeding you like a 10-strip of blotter. Like, best of luck, bud. The clowns are real, and they will feast on your soul. But as you go on, there are some like synths that kind of complement the music in almost a symphonic way. And they're not like out front. They don't sound like, you know, they're trying to like shove the score of like Lord of the Rings down your throat. They kind of just sit in the background, kind of behind the riff work, and just add like a little bit of like gothic atmosphere, especially on Curse of Desire, which for me was a huge standout because it is probably the only track in here where it really kind of like takes on some doom characteristics. Like, this is blackened death doom, I guess you could say. It has a more slow, brooding tempo, these absolutely dreary harmonies, and like kind of like heavier, more monotonous riffs. Honestly, at points, it sounds like, you know, My Dying Bride. It was only missing a violin to really draw the sadness out. If it did include that violin, seriously, it would hit harder than fucking like seasonal depression right now, because we're still salty about daylight savings stealing our sunshine.
And void of warmth. You see us bundled up right now? It's cold. I'm already tired of it, and we're in the very beginning.
Yay.
Yep. And what better way to usher it in than with a cold, dark record?
And I mean, that song in particular, like, it just has this, I don't know, like kind of damp, cold feel to it. Honestly, it's one of the few songs I would describe as like a little bit more lush. Like, again, the synths kind of complement it in a dreary orchestral way, but it leads in with these giant swells of bass synths. Like, it just kind of like pulsates out there and just kind of, I don't know, like already just gives it like kind of a dark, foreboding feel. I like that there's like a fair amount of variety in here, whereas the last one, I kind of felt like it kind of hung on to one sound a little bit too much. Like, it did break it up a little bit. Here, I feel like the songs do stand out, and sometimes they stand out in pairs. You know, like the middle of the album, I hear a lot of the death metal elements come out, but towards the end, you get like a lot more black metal. Like the last two tracks, Savage Daughter and Ritual, they probably have like the most straightforward black metal parts on there, like, you know, the super rapid fire blasting, second wave, icy, satanic everything. Savage Daughter is the shortest track on the album. It's under 3 minutes, and it is a blast beat fest pretty much from start to finish. Really no other elements in that other than black metal. And Ritual, while it does kind of balance it out a little bit with the black metal to death metal, it definitely favors the cold, icy sound of black metal. And honestly, this is one of those bands where the blend, they do both styles really well.
I think a shocker to me was how jam-packed full of riffs this was, and riffs that I didn't see coming, because I was thinking a bunch of black metal riffs, which there are. Savage Daughter, Ritual, the beginning of Sister Death has very blackened riffs, but what shocked me the most was the amount of death metal riffs that are packed into this. Because the second half of Sister Death after our black metal beginning is just downright savage. The same can be said for Mist on the Moat, and the same can be said for Confessions. Just, again, like jam-packed full of machine gun, nasty death metal riffs, and like the lowest end possible on Confessions. That song is just, punch to the face brutality. I think the same can be said for Sister Death, at least in the second half.
Honestly, the picking speed on here, it's kind of the same as the drum speed, like in terms of the double bass. Like, it's a constant stampede. And again, those riff changes I think are really cool. And production-wise, I think this sounds really solid too. This was mixed and mastered by Tua Madsen, who did their last one, and he's done a lot of stuff. Actually, he was a pretty popular name when it came down to like a lot of mid-2000s melodic death metal and just like kind of like Swedish death metal in general. It still sounds very dense and like just dark as hell, and again, like, tons of dissonance, but it still sounds very crisp. Like the drums cut through the mix really well, the vocals sit in a nice spot, kind of out front, and you can make out everything. Like when Mist on the Moat starts off, it is this isolated, just huge bass, and it sounds absolutely amazing. The synths also sit in a nice spot in the mix. They don't overpower the songs. They are there to complement and add atmosphere, which this album, I think, I don't know, it just has like a bigger, more polished sound to it. And, I kind of like the fact that it's a little strange to start out with. Like, there's definitely some more like almost avant-garde elements to begin with, and they implement those elements well. But I will say that while it kind of set itself up for that, like I kind of felt like, all right, these kind of weird moments are going to show up a lot more. They really didn't. Like, they kind of just got down to business, got down to the riffs, and it's really not a complaint, but I kind of wanted to hear some of those like injected in the music because they were like really interesting.
Yeah, not only did they make the songs bigger, but they made those first couple songs a lot more captivating too. And I'm not saying that this wasn't entertaining through and through. It definitely was. But like, if you're gonna throw that much of a twist on those first couple songs, don't completely take it away for the rest of the record. You gotta still let those moments shine out a little bit, since you made them a giant focal point of the first two tracks.
What they do remain consistent with is the atmosphere, though. There are like these good atmospheric dropouts throughout the entire album where you'll get like, like a more industrial sounding breakdown or some like ambient swell of noise or a sample, and they complement the songs really well. One of the things though that I did kind of take away from this, and it's not like the biggest complaint, but I don't know, it kind of is, there's a lot of repetition. And all right, I like it when bands hang on to riffs and kind of build on melodies and just kind of stick with the riff for a while. There's a lot of that on here. In fact, these songs do at times feel a little bit drawn out because most of them are like around the 6 minute mark. Like they're pretty long. There's a couple of shorter tracks in here, but for the most part, they are pretty long. There are songs where they kind of just repeat a couple of things and kind of just go back and forth. Like Weak as the Flesh is probably one of the guiltiest culprits. It bounces back and forth between this like death metal stampede and this more like blackened stomp for the chorus. And I feel like it just kind of does that too much. And then you get this really cool avant-garde bridge kind of out of nowhere. It kind of spices up the song a bit, and then you're kind of back to the give and take. There were some other moments in here that did that a bit much too, and while I like that kind of balance, like in terms of like going back and forth between the two styles, instead of just homogenizing it all the time, it did get a little dull at points.
I don't know. I was pretty entertained by all of it. I can't really make too many gripes here. The fuzziness of the production at the beginning got me, but it wore off really quickly. Like I was like, oh, this isn't. Oh no, never mind. Oh no, That sounds good. Okay, cool. It was kind of like that. So that's not a big gripe. But I mean, I was pretty entertained throughout most of this record. And while I guess there were a couple parts that, may have drawn out a little bit too much, what they did to kind of mask that, though, is to keep up with the atmosphere. And the atmosphere doesn't really ever let up. And the fact that it's predominantly just creepy and disturbing all the time is really cool. So I can't really gripe about that. In the end, I'm going to give this record 4 stars. I thought it was really good. Thought it was really riffy. Thought it was really dark. I thought it was creepy. I like the use of all the great atmosphere. The vocal performance is solid through and through. She does an amazing job with these kind of elongated theatrical vocals throughout. And it sounds cold and dark and evil. And I like that. And I will say this too. I've already made my year-end list. It's already packed. I am to the point where I can't get rid of anything on the list. But what I will call this is an honorable mention. Had this not been released in December, I probably would have put it on the list, but there's no room. But this is definitely end-of-year list worthy. It's a really good record. I enjoyed it, and the more and more I get into black metal, the more and more I enjoy stuff like this because it's riffy and it's dark and it's evil. All in all, if you're a big fan of Blue Dawes Nord, Portal, Morbid Angel, Marduk, and probably a ton of other things that I have no idea about, but Nick will probably tell you about, then you're probably going to like this. I would recommend checking it out.
I am going to go with a 3.5. Pretty solid 3.5. Could border on a 4. This I see as an improvement over the last one. I think it just amplifies what they were doing on that one, like, beefing up the riff work, the cool riff changes on here. It really opens up the atmosphere. Like, this feels way more of like an immersive listen. And believe me, some of these atmospheric moments will just kind of catch you off guard, like Confessions. I was not expecting to hear someone being burned and flayed and asked politely to confess. But it does set up that song really well. Production solid. Vocals in here, I think Sonia does an amazing job in here. Her vocals are just flat out vicious. And I just think the songwriting in here is a bit more dynamic. I love the doomy turn on Curse of Desire, especially. Like, I love that sad, morose, like, My Dying Bride shit.
We are sad people.
Yes. If you've ever been to the Midwest, you probably know it's nothing but sadness and cornfields.
Nope.
I do wish they explored a little bit more of that kind of like quirky, almost avant-garde stuff that was, shown off on the first 2 tracks a bit more. And yeah, some of the songs did get a little bit repetitive, but at the same time, they were repeating some really solid stuff. It just, you can hear too much of a good thing at times. If you're a big fan of, I would definitely say like earlier God Dethroned, maybe some elements of like, necrophobic, but also like some flat out nasty death metal. Like, definitely got Morbid Angel on here. There's definitely some stuff in here that reminds me a bit of, like a Monstrosity at times. And of course, like some second wave black metal moments, Mayhem, Marduk. If any of that sounds good to you, recommend checking this out. I too have also got my year-end list together. So yeah, this is just one that came out a little bit too late for me to like fully consider for my list, but that is not to say that this is a unworthy album. I think honestly, fans of this band will probably really dig this. So again, check it out. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also now have memberships. They are only 99 cents, and we offer a members-only live stream, which we will probably do next month, because this is month of December, and there's nothing but holiday madness out there, and I hate it. And also fucking humbug. But I'm already just kind of tired of hearing Christmas music. We also have dumb emojis, which I'll probably add more dumb emojis. This is the new way to support the channel if you guys would like. We also still have our store, thrallsmetal.com, with our t-shirts and hats. Thrallsmetal.com is linked down below in the description, and if you would like to join and become a member, there's a join button down below too. And as always, tons of stuff going on at Thralls of Metal album reviews. Well, this is the last batch of new album reviews for us because we're at the end of the year and it's time to do year-end lists. So year-end lists are coming. Discography rankings, we'll get to Motley Crue eventually. It's been a busy-ass year for us. All this stuff here at Thralls of Metal live streams, segments, all of what we do is all for you guys because we appreciate you. Thank you to all of our subscribers, everybody that's helped make this channel into something a whole hell of a lot larger than we ever thought it would be. We're creeping on the 6-year anniversary, you guys, of Thralls of Metal. So in just a couple days here, on the 18th of December, we will be 6 years old, which is insane. We've been mentally 6 for like ever.
Yeah, I think I've been mentally sick since I was 6. Couldn't do this without you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you guys absolutely rule, and probably sometime after a year in lists, I will announce a giveaway for 20,000 subscribers. And yeah, we're going to be bringing back retro reviews. Motley Crue, probably we're shooting for like mid-January on that one. So yeah, a lot of stuff on the docket. We're going to bring back some of the discussions too. So yeah, we're going to be busy. But yeah, it's been just absolutely awesome doing this for 6 years. It's crazy.
Ugh.
But thank you for every bit of support you guys have given us. You guys rule, and we will catch you later.